Seahawks, let's get on to the NFC West. We're finally on to the West. How long have we been going?
Oh, way too long.
We're efficient today-ish. Seattle Seahawks. I fixed their offensive line, but I did it differently. Everyone else, I was like, here's what you would spend on day one. I think they're more in that developmental O-line role. One of the things I suggested was letting Jamarco Jones, who struggled at guard last year, but was pretty good at Ohio State at tackle. Mm-hmm. I'd give him a shot at right tackle, at least initially. Maybe not roll into the season as your only option, but I think he's an option potentially at tackle. Wasn't as great of a fit at guard. Dwane Brown has been so much better than the rest of their linemen. I was tweeting that out. He has an 82 grade since he's joined the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Every other lineman's between 41 and like 65. So Dwane Brown is like the epitome of like one guy can help you creep back toward average.
Yeah. I mean, he changed everything immediately the second they acquired him.
Yes. Yes.
So they still need offensive linemen and always have.
Yeah, I just don't know if they're going to spend big resources there. I really think they're sitting there like, man, we can deal with a lesser line. Plus, Russell Wilson's going to make anybody we have look a little bit worse.
I think they're a team that, the way the Patriots, other than N'Keal Harry, don't draft receivers in the first round. The Seahawks feel to me like a team that's always going to go after the offensive line from the second onwards, right? So it just feels, it's almost like, if you've got this one marquee thing to snag, do you want to spend it in offensive lineman? It's just not exciting.
Well, they're also picking in the back end of the first round, and usually the top tackles are the first end. Dwane Brown is actually one of the examples of a guy that back half of the first was a pretty good player, not from them, but they bring Greg Olsen in at tight end, which I think is worth a gamble there.
Sure.
Their group of playmakers isn't looking so bad, knowing now what we know about DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Again, every other team, I've got questions about corner, but then if you look at their defensive front.
Edge rusher.
Right? Clowney's a free agent. Jaron Reed, off-field issues plus free agent. Ziggy Ansah, free agent. And yes, that's a place that they need to attack. They did draft last year in the first round LJ Collier, a surprise first-round pick. Got nothing out of him in 2019. Are they going to attack the edge well once again when it comes to free agency or the draft?
I think they should probably do both, to be honest. Again, we've talked edge rusher is not. It's this weird spot in free agency. The one that I would target is Eric Armstead, though the other one, so a lot of this is just what you're willing to spend, right?
Robert
what
Quinn.
They're going to get. Robert Quinn would be interesting. I don't know Dallas will let him go. The other guy that I think could be a really interesting fit for Seattle is Yannick Ngakoue, because this defense changed fundamentally when Cliff Averill declined and left, right?
Yeah.
When they lost the true, pure, no other responsibilities edge rusher, speed rusher, things changed, and they haven't really had that since. You give Ngakoue license to just get after the quarterback and forget about everything else, and try and patch things up around him, you might be cooking again.
Ooh, that would be a nice fit. I'm looking at,
but how much is he going to cost? That's the problem, right?
I'm looking at draft prospects. Kayvon Chason from LSU. Everybody's talking about him top half of the first round.
Yeah.
Because he's just freaky on tape. Like, he looks incredible, but just production-wise not there. If we were going by our board, he's a guy I would like maybe back into the first. For Seattle, it doesn't seem like he'll be there. Gross Matos from Penn State, though, I think could be a potentially good fit. Reminds me a little bit of Jason Pierre-Paul as a guy who's just a solid run defender who can get after the quarterback a little bit. Not exciting, but as far as like, hey, this depth chart does need to be rounded out. So they hopefully they fill some of those spots in free agency so you don't go into the draft with too many of those needs.
It's a great name.
Gross Matos?
Yeah.
What about Shaquille Griffin? He's been up and down at corner. Trey Flowers is a big question mark. Another team that I don't feel good about their cornerback situation. And they weren't rolling nickel coverage out there a whole lot, so they didn't love their corner situation either.
Well, yeah, they've been talking about having an actual defensive back as nickel now, so that might change. So Seattle has a very specific type of cornerback, right? The long length guy. They don't even look at people with arms shorter than 32 inches, et cetera. Who, in your eyes, in the draft class is the best Seattle corner?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are in that.
Don't confine yourself to corners because they can often be looking at safeties to move to corner.
Well, when I was watching Xavier McKinney from Bama the other day, he ran a 4.63, so he's probably out of that mix. But I was watching him, and his footwork is spectacular. And I was thinking teams might look at him and say, okay, he's a corner potentially. Cam Dantzler didn't have the arm length we expected, right? At 6'2". Bryce Hall, who you mentioned before, probably fits that bill. Do they still only want these long corners, though?
I think so.
A.J. Terrell from Clemson potentially as well. I would say 6'1", 190. But I don't really care what their fit is. They need to start. They need to expand and just get guys who cover well, no matter what it is.
True. But, I mean, if they're not going to, there's no point in, you need to do this.
Yeah, I mean, Trevon Diggs probably fits perfectly, right? So Alabama, Trevon Diggs, we've already matched him with 6 other teams. But Diggs would be number 1, I would say, if you're trying to match a Seattle corner. But it's just, you said they don't take old linemen in the first round. They're not taking corners in the first round either.
Well, at some point, you got to do something.
How much do teams, this is a whole different podcast as well, how much do teams look at their history and either, do they just say, hey, we found a Richard Sherman before, we found Brandon Browner and made him good, we found Byron Maxwell before and made it, therefore that we can do that, therefore we don't need to spend on a player. Kind of like the Patriots saying, Belichick's never spent a first round wide receiver, and I've got the best quarterback of all time. I have the best passing game of all time, and I've never drafted a first round wide receiver. Seattle's had a great pass defense for multiple years without spending on a first round corner. How much do teams look at that and say, here's our history, we're going to repeat history?
I think there's probably a lot of it. You get sucked into what you think you can do.
Yeah, it's risky. Seattle's roster has depleted over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And they need to fix it. And we just fixed it with a whole bunch of hypotheticals. San Francisco 49ers. How do the Niners get back to the Super Bowl?
If they could get Jimmy Garoppolo playing better in 2020 than he did in 2019, which is not crazy because I don't think he played that well last year.
He was a top 6 to 8 quarterback in a 6-7 game stretch, right? Whatever that was. How many games did he play in 2017?
Right.
Small sample size, he played extremely well. But he's still probably just he's the middle tier guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect inevitably the team overall will regress, but there's potential for them to get all of that back if Jimmy Garoppolo takes a step forward. So that would be like, job one is hope and pray that he plays better next year.
So that's it, just hope and pray.
It's not a huge amount of action items from that one, but that would be my primary plan.
Continue to evolve that offense. I mean, last year at this time, we've said, okay, they need corners and they need edge rushers, right?
Yeah.
They attacked the edge rush position with Nick Bosa and Dee Ford, and they did show when you have Bosa, Ford, Armstead, Buckner, Solomon Thomas, whoever it is, like you got a bunch of guys who can get after it. That is a challenge for opposing offenses, and they just trusted their cornerback situation. Now they're a team that's going to look at it and say, hey, Ahkello Witherspoon was struggling, but we made Emmanuel Mosley into a guy.
Yeah.
But this is still another team. I would throw more resources there. They have to replace a Jimmy Ward at safety.
Yep.
I think Ashton Davis out of Cal is a really fun player that would fit well there. So, they've got a couple holes there. They cannot, here's what they can't do. Can't fall into the lull of these other teams that have been good in recent years. The Jaguars lost in the AFC Championship. The Bears had that great team. And looking at the roster and saying, hey, it's a good roster. We only have a couple holes to fill. Fill those holes. Continue to fill with premier positions and anticipate that premier positions are going to either leave or become too expensive in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're also in a spot where they're good, but they can upgrade in a lot of areas in terms of just getting better talent. Like, look, the interior of their offensive line is a combination of guys that are not very good, right? Now, they play well because that scheme protects them, and they don't, they're not asked to do as much in certain areas as some other teams are. But again, it's like what we've talked about before. The scheme is helping them out a huge amount. So what happens when you upgrade the talent within a scheme that's friendly for that position? So if they stumble upon an interior offensive lineman, it's suddenly a massive upgrade. Jump all over that.
You know what I forgot to do earlier?
What'd you forget to do earlier?
Tell you about our friends over at Manscaped.
Oh, yes.
We are overhauling every NFC team.
We are.
You can overhaul your balls.
Overhaul your balls.
With Manscaped. If you're listening to this podcast right now, look down. Try to remember the last time you shaved your junk. It's been a while, and that's why you need Manscaped. How's that?
That's impressive. You don't often hear I don't know that I've ever heard the phrase overhaul your balls.
That's what we're doing. We're fixing every NFL team. You could fix your balls with Manscaped. Perfect Package 3.0. Manscaped is forever changing the grooming game with the Perfect Package 3.0 Essentials Kit. It's the perfect tool for your family jewels. Everybody stop laughing off camera here. Can we get some professionals here? Is there anybody professional here? No, there's not.
No.
There's not. I'm not going to do like the fake Berman rant. Perfect Package 3.0 kit comes with the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. It's waterproof, cordless body trimmer, and a ton of other liquid formulations to round out your manscaping routine, Sam. It's a whole routine. Just like you're in the offseason, you got to build through free agency. You got to build through the draft. You got to use the Perfect Package 3.0, the entire kit. The third-generation trimmer comes with cutting-edge ceramic blades to prevent manscaping accidents. Millions of balls are about to go nick-free thanks to Manscaped's advanced skin-safe technology.
That was a masterstroke of Reed. That was impressive.
Am I doing well?
That was phenomenal. I've never heard a segue like that.
Here's the thing. We love Manscaped. They're our friends. We hope you love them too. We know that you'll love them too. When you purchase the new Perfect Package 3.0 kit, you will get the biggest bang for your buck. Subscribers get a new replacement blade to refill your lawnmower trimmer. And it comes to your door every 3 months. So you'll always have a fresh blade. That's important. And then you got the 2 free gifts, the Shed Travel Bag that Sam loves and the patented high-performance anti-chafing Manscaped Boxer Briefs. You get 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code PFF at manscaped.com. 20% off, free shipping, promo codes PFF, manscaped.com. Don't forget to go do it right now. Pause the show.
Do it right now.
Pause the show. Go do it right now. Your partner, your body, and your balls will all thank you. 20% off. PFF is the promo code. Manscaped.com.
Wow.
We're fixing everything.
The reads are getting so good that people are signing off emails with things like, keep it trimmed, keep them trimmed?
Yes. I think people are buying in. People are buying the Perfect Package 3.0, and they're buying in.
Well, as long as they are buying the Perfect Package, because we need them to keep buying so that we can keep doing the reads.
Yeah.
If you don't buy the thing, the reads go away.
We're all winners here.
We have to start
if we do that.
advertising Lysol or whatever it is.
Let's wrap up the 49ers here, okay? Offensive line depth, I think, would be great. I think they're potentially one of those teams in the mix. Jonah Jackson's our top guard in the draft. Damian Lewis, guard from LSU. Either of those guys, especially Jackson, I think if they're looking at, Laken Tomlinson and Mike Person, the 2 guys listed as starters and upgrades there, Jonah Jackson would be a really nice fit out of Ohio State. Do you really try to replace? They're losing Eric Armstead up front, too. They got a ton of value. Are they going to look at this offseason and say, we need 4 guys, right? We had 4 guys who could rush the passer, and that's why we had success. We need to replace that.
Yeah, I mean, again, you think you're set there. This worked because you had a guy like that creating a ton of pressure in addition to everybody else. So, yeah, keep rolling. The other guy for the interior of the offensive line that I think feels like someone that could come in and immediately contribute is Tyler Biadasz from Wisconsin.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Great call.
He feels like he could plug right into that and immediately just be a 10-year starter on that kind of system.
Don't give me 10 year. Now, great fit though.
10-year starter.
Don't give me the 10-year starter. Every center's a 10-year starter.
10-year starter.
Don't give me that. They're rumored
is it time to bring up my favorite ever draft aphorism?
I don't know.
About I've told you this before, right? The greatest description I've ever heard of a player was he's going to start in this league for 10 years, but you'll be mad at him every day of those 10 years. And honestly, it was almost absolutely dead on because it was Alex Barron who made it like 9 years before they finally got sick of him and got rid of him.
Do people hear themselves talk? Do they actually hear themselves?
How perfect a description is that of Alex Barron, though?
Themselves. Yeah, it's great.
Playing the league for 10 years, people will be mad at him every day of those 10 years.
But just like you have a choice in these other situations here, you have a choice not to start a guy that's not good. Yeah. You don't have to start a guy that you're going to be mad at that's not good.
But it's like you're constantly chasing the idea that he should be better than he is. And it takes you 10 years to finally give up on the fact that it's not happening.
So bad. All right, 2 more teams to round it out. Arizona Cardinals. We loved their draft last year. I don't think that they got the immediate returns to prove us right in that respect, right?
True.
I mean, so Kyler was fine.
Yep.
I think he showed the star potential. Had a pretty good rookie season. So happy with that. We had high expectations for Andy Isabella, potentially for Hakeem Butler, who they got in the 4th round. Byron Murphy was a bit of a disappointment as a rookie. Are those guys, now not every rookie hits the ground running. Jalen Thompson, the safety, are they going to get these guys, Deontay Thompson, are these guys going to get back on track and make the 2019 draft class look even better?
I mean, I think receiver is the big problem, right? Because so you've got the quarterback. You're in the same situation as the Browns were a season ago, thinking they had the sure thing franchise quarterback. Now you've got to build around him quickly. Larry Fitzgerald is still their best receiver by a distance. Larry Fitzgerald is like 127 years old. It's time to find somebody else that can make an impact. Maybe that's Andy Isabella year 2. Maybe it's Akeem Butler coming back from being injured. On the other hand, you don't know that, so you probably need to throw some resources at this because it's not Christian Kirk, really. It's not Trent Sherfield. Like it's nobody else in that roster, right? So maybe it's the 2 guys from a season ago, but you can't have seen enough from either of those 2 guys to be sure of that in an extremely wide receiver rich draft class. So they should definitely be shopping for wide receiver early in this group.
Who's the best fit for these guys? I mean, so when you look at Kyler Murray and his passing map, it's very outside the numbers driven. Now, is that Kyler Murray or is that Kingsbury's scheme? The knock on the shorter quarterbacks over time has been, they can't see over the middle. They can't throw over the middle. I think a guy like Baker's pretty good at it. Kyler never really was great at it at Oklahoma. It was never really a part of his game. And you can tell he's not as comfortable doing it. So do you want a guy like Ruggs to be the outside guy? Like CeeDee Lamb feels like the guy that's going to win all over the field more than, say, a Jerry Jeudy or a Henry Ruggs, for instance, in my mind. I think he can win in more places. He also has that connection with Kyler Murray. Or do you say Judy's going to win more on the outside and in the slot? Ruggs is going to win a little bit more on the outside. They're a better fit than the guy like Lamb, who I think could win maybe in a few more different places.
I mean, I think being able to win everywhere is never going to be a bad thing. So I think I don't know that they can go wrong with the group of receivers at the top end of the draft. I think they are all pretty spectacular at different things. But I don't know that any of them are inherently bad fits with what the Cardinals want to do. I think they all function somewhere in this offense. And as I just said, like, it's not like we've got these 2 positions nailed. We need the 3rd specific role, right? You can plug anybody into this offense and it be an obvious upgrade, particularly with the fact that Larry Fitzgerald has got some kind of flexibility in terms of what he can do. So he can be the guy that moves if you get somebody that takes a specific spot. So pick your favorite, pick who's available. The best receiver available when you're drafting is the guy you should be going after. Number 8, you might get the pick of all of them. If you get the pick of all of them, pick your favorite. If it's CeeDee Lamb, who you think is the best guy, grab him. If it's Jerry Jeudy, you think is the best guy, grab him.
Lamb and Murray being back together would be intriguing.
Right. I mean, that's the obvious connection, right? Is that I think Murray's already been lobbying for that to happen. So if he's sitting there when you draft at 8, even just for the sake of keeping your quarterback happy, it's not a bad pick.
I think that's where the value is going to match up pretty well.
Yeah.
Is receiver. I would be fascinated by Ruggs and Isabella potentially being on the field at the same time. If they use Isabella right,
which they won't,
on the outside, but just the type of speed, Christian Kirk, the type of speed that they could put on the field, plus old man Larry. Look, so I think, yes, weapons for Kyler Murray. Offensive line is still not great. It did get better with the scheme as we anticipated, but, I think, tackle's a place that they could look.Maybe, I always use the Josh Jones Houston example. If he ends up becoming like an early second-round pick, I think that's a potential steal.
Yeah, they're like the Giants, right? Everything is a hole, almost. They really don't have many spaces where you look at and say, no, they're set there. You don't need to worry about that. So pick the best player available. I think for them in particular, because they have the quarterback and that receiving core, receiver is the obvious first step. But frankly, whatever you think is the best player available all the way down the draft, keep hammering because...
At a position of value.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, that's where you start. But there's no position where you can't be upgraded upon fairly comfortably.
So just pick the best players.
Yes. Draft good players, Steve.
Draft good players. Do you see any free agent wide receivers that you like as a fit? Does your boy Emmanuel Sanders fit here as well? Does Robbie Anderson fit here as another stretch the field type of guy? I know there's rumors about him going back with the Jets, but like where do the free agents potentially fit in here?
I mean, I think Emmanuel Sanders fits anywhere, but it's a shorter term deal, and you already have Larry Fitzgerald as your shorter term option, so I just don't know that's a great fit. Robbie Anderson is one of the best deep threats in the NFL consistently and has been doing it without very good quarterback play. So I'd be very intrigued to see what happens when you team him with a Kyler Murray, who's got a great deep pass, who's got a higher level than some of the quarterbacks that have been throwing his way. I'd be all for that. I'm perennially intrigued by Brashad Perriman, this free agent group. I just think, given what we saw at the ass end of last year, became the starter, had 3 back-to-back 100-yard games, didn't drop a pass in that scenario, made a few circus catches. Like if all you saw of his NFL career so far was those 3 games, you would think he was the first round pick that he was, and that the middle bit didn't happen, right? It was like first round talent, he's a quality Pro Bowl level receiver, that's exactly as it should be. Whereas the intermediate area was disaster, and he's on his 4th team now when he gets to this next one. So I think, just the connection of the 2 things on either end. We had this talent baseline. We just saw what he could be in the NFL. Let's try and connect those 2. I think that's worth a roll of the dice for somebody.
I like it. And then maybe that gives you some flexibility to not have to force a wide receiver in the draft, even though, again, the value should match up. There you go, Arizona Cardinals.
Okay.
Let's wrap it up. Los Angeles Rams. There's 2 or 3 teams around the league that are in this similar situation, right? Have had some good years, and you want to go into the offseason and say, okay, let's get better. And they're not in a great position to get better, either from a cap space standpoint or from a draft capital standpoint. They will not pick until the 20th pick of round 2, so no first round pick because of the very Ramsey move to trade for Jalen.
Ramsey.
Right?
But of course, they have some new horrible logos, so they're set.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about their terrible logo. That's an embarrassment.
It really is abysmal.
Really looks bad. But, so are they similar to the Saints, the Texans? So let me compare them to the Saints. If you just look at the roster, it's like, okay, Goff's their capable quarterback, right? Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, that's who he's throwing to next year. You have Jalen Ramsey in the defensive backfield. Your boy Troy Hill is back. You still have Aaron Donald up front. Like, all right, so you have all these pieces in place. You have the great Todd Gurley. You just like, all right, we're going to roll out there and hope that things go a little bit better this year because, 2 years ago, similar team made it to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The roster's not that different from the Super Bowl team.
It's not. I think the dynamic is very different, though.
I agree the dynamic's different.
Their offensive line has also become garbage in that period of time, which is a problem.
Yeah, that's a big concern.
Now you're going to lose Andrew Whitworth, presumably, unless you bring him back. Whitworth is the only guy last year that held his head above water on that line, and even Whitworth looks like he started to decline to the point where you've got to be concerned about his future.
Can we put this in perspective real quick? We had the Rams as the number 31 offensive line last year.
Yeah, it was awful.
Out of 32. But worse than the Bengals, who we trash here all the time.
Yep.
The Chargers, trash here all the time. The Jets.
Yep.
The Seahawks. The Jaguars, the Bears. I mean, so all these teams that we are offensive line's an issue, offensive line's an issue, and the Rams were worse than them.
We said this all last year, that last year featured 5 of the worst offensive lines we've ever seen in the same season. It was insane. The Rams' offensive line is a complete disaster. Rob Havenstein, I don't know what he is. He went from being one of the best right tackles in the NFL to one of the worst in a heartbeat with no explanation of what the hell happened. So if you're if you're planning for 2020, what is he? Is he our starter at right tackle who we're happy with? Is he a guy we need to immediately upgrade upon because he was awful? What? I don't even know.
This is this is what I just wrote about, right? Regressed unexpectedly after 4 strong seasons to start his career, and all of a sudden he was terrible. I mean, part of their offseason hope is to hope. Just kind of hope he gets back, right? Okay, you have to replace Andrew Whitworth. They don't have the first-round pick to do it, so all those top tackles will be off the board. I come back to UConn, Peart being a guy that is a nice developmental option. But if you're sitting there, if your first pick is, a developmental tackle out of UConn in the second round.
It's not exciting.
Right? It's not exciting. It's like, okay, this guy could be a starter. He played right tackle in college, so is there a transition to left tackle? There's a lot of question marks there, but I like him as a player for the long-term rebuild. Brian Allen's, maybe okay at center, but Biadasz, I think, would be a really nice fit here, though, where he could play center or guard. Allen can play center or guard. You could kind of mix and match where the best fits are there. But again, this is just trying to creep back toward average on the offensive line, so you give Goff a chance, and so you give your running backs a chance.
And it's not a good, it's an ugly time to be trying to do that in free agency if you look at what's available, because, do you either massively overpay for a Jack Conklin because he's the one sort of clean prospect in terms of young, sure thing, plays well, no massive problems, right? Or do you try and get Andrew Whitworth back for one more year and know that it's you're just buying time? Do you try and resuscitate the career of somebody, lower down? Do you get a Brian Bulaga knowing that he'll probably be pretty solid, but the guy's got a fairly extensive injury history?
But is he going to replace Havenstein?
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah. Or like a guy like Vaitai, right? It's like, well, he got a little bit better. It wasn't a complete disaster when he came in this time. Do we think that he can step in and creep back toward average? Like, it's not good.
Not great situations. So I think it's like re-sign Witt, hope for Havenstein. I say his name differently every single time. Hope for him at right tackle. If you draft a Biotish, say, in the second round, not a bad selection there, right? Maybe in the third if you can get him there. Okay, that's your O-line. Now, defensively, the eternal, like, who's going to rush the quarterback to help Aaron Donald? Dante Fowler's a free agent. Michael Brockers, I think you just let him walk, right, at this point in today's NFL. But Cory Littleton has been one of the best coverage linebackers in a while.
Yeah.
And he goes from, like, dude, he's a steal as a great coverage linebacker for nothing to now he's gonna break the bank somewhere. That's not going to be easy to replace.
One last guy for the offensive line Band-Aid, always Stefan Wisniewski. Bring him in. He'll be better than what you have there right now, and he won't cost very much. So do that immediately.
It's funny because I didn't mind the Austin Corbett trade.
Sure.
Like, he had some, he might still have some value, but he wasn't a great start.
Like, I thought
You did like him.
I liked him at center. I don't think he was a guard, so I'm still not completely sold on the idea that doesn't work.
They're going with the old, that was what the Seahawks did a few years ago, just get a bunch of centers.
Yes.
The force center offense.
But I think Wisniewski is like it's an insurance policy and a Band-Aid, right? You bring him in, even if he's only your sixth offensive lineman at the time you bring him in, I guarantee you with this group, by the end of training camp, he'll be starting at one of your three interior positions, and he'll be better than the guy you replaced. So do that.
Somebody said we're ignoring the fact that the Rams have no money. Yes, I know they don't. They have $19 million in cap space. That's bottom
no
8.
money.
It's not no money. I mean, there's enough to.
It's enough money to sign Stefan Wisniewski, for God's sake.
Maybe re-sign Witt, and then you got to draft well with the limited picks that you have. The Rams are not in a great spot for long-term team building, and they just essentially need some things to go right.
Yeah.
Continue, trade down, add some depth, and that's the strategy.
And pray, hope.
Pray and hope, Rams.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.